Good morning, PUSD teachers. We'll get started in just one moment. For now, if you are interested in using the closed captioning feature, which will allow subtitles to come across your screen, you can click on the WebEx assistant that should be in your lower left corner. All right. Thank you for being here. I hope that coming off of a spring break, I know that today may have been a bit of a jump start, but we do appreciate you guys taking the time to jump in to the live meeting. We are recording so that if you are taking an asynchronous day and you need to jet out for any reason or you want to rewatch, this recording will be available on the PD resources page within the next day. We'll get it done as soon as the recording is over. The other logistical thing that I wanted to share is that the slide deck that you're going to be seeing throughout this presentation is already linked into the PD resources page if you'd like to follow along that way. But I wouldn't worry. I just wanted you to know that so that you don't feel you have to take copious notes. You will have access to this when the meeting is over or during the meeting if you'd like. There are links that are in this slide deck that you can actually click on and it'll take you to other additional resources. So that's why it's important for you to know that the slide deck is linked to the PD resources page and we'll make sure that we take you through how to find that. Okay? All right, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna read a quick quote to you from Audrey Monk. It says that this pandemic is unprecedented for us, but we have experienced other hard things. This time gives us an opportunity to practice resilience and to show our kids what resilience looks like. I think that this is a statement that actually embodies a lot of what you've done this entire year. I am incredibly impressed, as well as the team, with just how quickly teachers have pivoted, how much work teachers have done to create amazing instructional opportunities for kids in the unlikeliest of settings. And this shift back into in-person instruction is another moment when teachers are being asked to do more. And we know that there is, a lot of concern around changing protocols and changing timelines and things like that. But the one constant is that you have been flexible, and every time you rise, your resilience is exhibited. And when your students see you, whether in person or when they remain online, it will demonstrate to them what their resilience and safety needs to be. So thank you for that, because it isn't unnoticed, even if it definitely feels like a long haul. So with that, I'm going to transition us to what we'll go over today. So we're going to start with the social emotional learning check-in. One, for serving two purposes. One, because we want to ease into the return to school for you with a little bit of a check-in there. But two, because it's something that you could potentially replicate with your class. And know that anything that is being shown to you, we're going to have the resources available as well. So we'll do an SEL check-in, but I want you to also know in a front load for next week that we'll actually spend a little bit more time on some of the resources that you can utilize when you return to the in-person learning next week. The second is that we'll go over the logistics. Many of you in your A meetings have already talked about the change in the schedule, but we'll go over that with a little bit more detail around what's expected of students and what's expected of teachers. Third and fourth, we'll actually talk about the learning space and the learning experience. So the space is more about the physical environment of your room that you guys have been setting up, with just some key points that we wanted to point out from actual classrooms in PUSD. And then in the learning experience, we'll talk about some of the actions that you would take to bridge the cohorts when you get back into in-person learning. So with those two areas, we actually are going to have a lot of visuals from video and photos because visualizing it will help make things concrete. Some of these videos and photos might be redundant to you because you've already created your space and things like that. But we want to make sure that we can visualize it all together so that we kind of have the baseline of what's possible. And then finally, we'll end with Q&A if there's anything that you want to make sure that we address or that wasn't addressed fully. You'll also notice that there is a Q&A option in this meeting that you can, throughout the meeting, drop questions into, and we have a team of people who can provide answers. If it's a question that would require a little bit more explanation, they'll drop it into a separate section for me to be able to read at the end of the meeting. So regardless, we're going to make sure that we either answer your questions live in the Q&A throughout the meeting, or we'll try to address them at the end of the meeting in the Q&A section. And then following every single Monday module that we do that's required, we will post an FAQ document of all questions that were asked during this meeting and their answers. So for some of you guys, if the questions are very overwhelming, you can definitely refer to that FAQ document that we'll post following the meeting. And that will also be on the PD resources page. So we've done this trajectory with the elementary teachers and done a cycle of two trainings with them as well. And the same thing afterwards, the recording, the slide deck, and then a compilation of all of those Q&As are going to be put into an FAQ document and posted to the PD resources page for your reference. All right. Okay. So with that, let me hand this over to one of the facilitators for today to start our SEL check-in. And actually, I forgot something. I do want to introduce you to the other 3 people that will be facilitating alongside me today so that they don't have to do it while they're going. But with section 1, with the SEL check-in, you'll be working with Karen Anderson, our District Arts and Enrichment Coordinator. With the learning space, Mr. Jose Ortega, our District Literacy Specialist, will be sharing information. And then the learning experience will be facilitated by Nadir Nayo, our Coordinator for Curriculum and Instruction. So let me hand it over to Karen.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I think as we're getting in, I know people were just getting in because there were some stresses about the link and all of these different things that we're bringing with us today. And we are coming out of spring break. So the first thing that I'd like to invite you to do is to find a neutral stance and to just bring your shoulders to your ears with a breath and then let it out. To drop those shoulders, that takes some of that stress, tension in our shoulders out. Let's do it again. And then go ahead and let it out. Just that little movement helps us to bring it out a little bit. Now, when working with children or young adults or adults who have maybe experienced some trauma, we don't always want to ask them to close their eyes because that can be challenging. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to either close your eyes or to take just a neutral place to look, whether that's at a wall or looking down, and just go ahead and take a big breath with your eyes closed or in a neutral position away from the screen, and let it out. And as you're breathing, I'd like you to I invite you to see what color comes forward behind your eyelids or as you're looking onto a neutral space. What color is present for you at this time? It might come up behind in your mind's eye with your eyes closed, or it might come up as you look at the screen and see these options of shades and tints within the color palette. So what color is speaking to you? So just take a minute. It might take a couple more breaths for that color to come forward. You might have determined within these range of 4 colors which color is coming forward for you. And now I invite you to look at those shades and tints and see the variation of the color and which one is speaking to you the most right now. And as you have identified that color with specificity, I invite you to put a word, an emotion word, word that you think speaks to that color. Okay. So I don't want to give an example because we all have different emotions that come forward with colors. But I do invite you to share. So I'm going to put this exact same question into the Q&A. The color and the emotion that comes with that color that you're experiencing. So if you could just put that into, whoops, I don't think I'm doing the Q&A correctly because it's not letting me send it. So, Harmony, oh, thank you. Media put teal, calmness. Devette says yellow, happiness. So just go ahead and share those so we can see the variety of responses that come. Green, oxygen. That's interesting. Oxygen as an emotion, right? Oxygen feeds our emotions. Red energy, interesting. So we see blue, some blues, some green and calm, some blue for calm. Good. Thanks, Ella. Thanks, Rosalind. So I'd love to see those responses. Blue is patience. Interesting, Marianne. Thank you for that. So as you breathe in, you see those colors and you can see where you are setting yourself right now. The lime green is fresh. Claire said, huh? So whatever color is coming forward for you right now, that you go, yes, I'm with the yellow. And then what emotion do you associate with that color? Okay, good. Yellow, open-minded. So this is some research that comes from the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. And it has to do with setting, from the range of research that's been done, that human beings respond to certain colors with certain emotions. And human beings, actually, you can go forward on the slide, please. That human beings can actually adjust their emotions based on, by using the colors that come with it. So the mood meter that comes from Dr. Mark Brackett at Yale is a measure of our level of pleasantness and our level of energy. So as you can see in the blue quadrant, we have low energy, but we feel we have high pleasant and low pleasantness. And as we go over to the green quadrant, we have a higher level of pleasantness, but still low energy. As we go up into the yellow quadrant, we have high energy and high pleasantness. So we're feeling pretty good over here. And as we go into the red quadrant, we have high energy and low pleasantness. So that idea that the energy was with the red, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Over time, sometimes we associate red with being a negative, with being stop, with being a bad thing, but it's just a different type of energy, okay? And what I like about this particular graphic is that it has the range of words. So remember I asked you to look at the shades and tints. So maybe you were in the green, but there's a difference between feeling fulfilled and feeling mellow, right? And they're both within the range of green. There's a difference between feeling pleasant and feeling elated. They're both within the range of yellow. And the research that Dr. Brackett has engaged in is really about naming the emotion so that then we can tame the emotion if we need to. And we have to label that emotion label it in order to regulate it, right? So knowing where kids are just in terms of color without the words can really help us to determine what kinds of activities to engage in a particular classroom at a particular time. So if you could move to the next slide. So what works, what's happening when we're in each zone, and then what works in each zone has come out of this research. So when we're in the blue zone of low pleasantness and low energy, that means that we're actually in a really good place for deductive reasoning, for critical thinking, and for empathy, for being able to see outside of ourselves. And to be able to see the detail. Whereas when we're in the red zone, where that energy is higher, it might be harder for us to see the detail, but we might be really good at competitive activities and debate and passionate expression, right? Because we've got this high energy and heightened awareness of what's around us. But then when we move over into that yellow, We've got this idea of creative thinking, generation of new ideas. So this is a really good time for brainstorming, creative problem solving, and group activities. And when we're in the green, we're feeling relaxed, we're feeling calm. This is a great time for consensus building, for reflection. I'm able to actually see what I did and reflect on it and to collaborate with others on that piece. So there's different kinds of activities that are more conducive to different types of zones. So the idea of using the mood meter is to sort of take a barometer, take a poll of your class and go, oh my gosh, I got a lot of kids in the blue. So I'm probably not going to to get a lot of response with trying to do this debate today, right? Or right at this minute. I'm going to have to do an activity that's going to get us into a higher energy zone so that we can get into that, doing that passionate expression, right? Or I've got a lot of kids who are really feeling in the green. You know what? Let's do some group work. Let's do some collaboration. Let's reflect. So it might shift some of our instructional practices. And it also might help us to engage in thinking about what are the activities that it can take us to some of the different zones. Now, is this the same for everybody? Of course not. It's there's always going to be outliers, but this is from the body of research that shows that when people are connected into certain color zones, this is the way that their emotions are coming out. So there's a lot to do with this. I just wanted to introduce it to you to give you a little food for thought and to be able to use the blank meter to help determine where your kids are. Even if you just say, which color are you associating with today? It's going to give you some data that's going to help you to determine where to go next and what type of maybe SEL activity to go into next. Next week, Kim Knutson and I will be sharing a whole bunch of other SEL activities for you. So thank you so much. And I'm going to, we'll take some questions at the end. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Helen.
Thank you, Karen. That was very illuminating for me. I liked seeing that in the Q&A, those of you who dropped in your colors are actually associating a lot of the words that Karen was pointing out as well. And big credit to the PE teachers that I just saw in a meeting earlier. I feel that I was seeing a lot of the yellow and the red, the heightened energy. There was a lot of energy in that meeting. And so but exhibiting across a big spectrum of different of moods, I guess is what Dr. Brackett is referring to. So great to know that in any color zone, we just have to name it so that we can be aware and address it. All right, so I'm going to move into logistics. This is something that, again, you may have already covered in your A meeting with your principals, but we wanted to give some common information and provide for you guys maybe some information about what's expected of the students and what's expected of the teachers. So this is likely an image that you may have seen. I think it's the image that was used at the board meeting. So it's the public facing image that talks about what the student's schedule typically is. So if you're in middle school, you'll look on the left side. If you're at the high school, you look on the right side. Now, these times are not exact because your school will have your exact schedule. For example, some periods are 70 minutes long, some are 72 minutes long, something that I saw earlier today. But this just talks about the chunk of when the students are engaged in live learning and then when they transition into what we are calling the personalized learning time. And I'll address a little bit about what can happen at the personalized learning time later. But really what you're seeing here in the student day is that when we return to in-person learning, this all really goes into effect on April 20th, next Tuesday. When we go into the in-person learning, the schedule is being consolidated. Right now, your current schedule has you teaching 3 periods a day, but within each period's block, you have half of that time for synchronous learning, which is the live time, and then half of that time for personalized learning. And possibly variations if you've adjusted, but you really do have your 1 period for a significant block of time. When we transition into in-person, all of the synchronous learning time is being consolidated to happen before lunchtime. And then all of that personalized learning time is being consolidated to happen after lunchtime. So essentially it would be, for example, periods 1, 2, and 3 before lunchtime, and then that same group of kids, periods 1, 2, and 3 after lunchtime. But the distinction is that before lunchtime, it's live learning, whether they're at home or in person with you. And then after lunch, it's the PLT time, and that's at your discretion, whether it's small group learning or it's asynchronous learning. You don't have to meet with every kid in the class after lunch. You can designate meeting with particular students, or you can have them be and have others be asynchronous, or you can meet with the whole class. That's, again, your discretion. All right, let me go into the teacher schedule so you can see a little bit of a more detailed breakdown. But the last thing that I wanted to share about the student schedule is you'll notice in the middle on the Tuesdays through Fridays that it's a grab and go lunch. So this is really being done so that we can make sure that students are exiting the campus, the in-person kids anyway, your asynchronous kids, I'm sorry, not asynchronous kids, your online kids who are learning remotely from home would then have a break, and the learning would resume in the afternoon. Okay. All right, so with this, again, same thing, middle school is on the left, high school is on the right, but let me take you through your week. So on Mondays, the same thing as really is happening right now is really what the Mondays will look like for the rest of the school year. Mondays are remote, so all kids are remote. No child is coming in person on Mondays. And you have the option to either come and teach from your classroom or to stay remote and teach from whatever location you're in. That's on Mondays only. Same thing where you will have that block of time in the morning for a couple hours to do synchronous time with all your students virtually. You'll follow the same schedule of rotating the periods that you do now. And then for the rest of that afternoon, your students will be, or the rest of that day, your students will be asynchronous while you can attend Monday modules or do planning, have lunch, and then go into your A and B Monday time as usual. So Mondays really are not that different. Going to the Tuesdays and Thursdays is where you'll see the shift. So Tuesdays to Thursdays are when your students will be on site, the ones who select to come in. Your online students, again, stay remote and will be logging in, but now their times are slightly different. So I wouldn't say that it's that you would tell your students that's the exact same schedule from distance learning, because their period times have changed. So again, from that 8:30 to 12:25, that's your hybrid simultaneous learning time, where you are live with in-person students and having your online kids log into the class period with you, and merging those two cohorts for instruction. The actual breakdown of period by period time frames you will get from your school administrator, because again, they vary slightly by school, but they are approximately an hour to 70 minutes long. All right. Then you will transition into lunch, which is a grab and go for the students, and then have that time after lunch to do the personalized learning time with, again, the same periods that you saw in the morning for hybrid simultaneous. For live learning, you will have those same periods in the afternoon, but this time you have flexibility around whether the whole class is coming back with you for PLT time in that period section, or if you're just seeing a few students, or everyone's asynchronous. You have some flexibility in what that looks like in the afternoon. Also note that the personalized learning time is slightly shorter in the afternoon. So you won't have the hour with each class. It'll be more like 25 minutes, I believe. All right. But again, check with your school administrator for the exact period by period schedule. Then the next thing is that from 2:10 to 3:10, just like it is now, that's your office hours and prep time. I put a little asterisk there because the same thing applies as Mondays. During that office hours or prep time, you are able to conduct that from your classroom or conduct that remotely if you need to travel. However, we just ask that whatever office hours time that you give to your students enables you to have the commute if you're heading home or to another location. All right. So, but that is something that you can do in knowing that that prep time does not have to stay on campus, but you can stay on campus if you'd like to. And then at 3:30 is your teacher dismissal time as usual. I'm sorry, for high school, and then 3:15 for middle school. Okay. Considerations, I kind of covered them, but the nutrition and lunchtime is going to be embedded into that schedule. It does have to be outdoors. If there's inclement weather, your school sites are going to plan for what the alternative is. But the majority of the in-person days, nutrition will happen outdoors. So there is going to be that 10 to 15-minute nutrition break. And then grab and go lunches again provided daily for students who come in person. Students who are online are also eligible to pick up grab and go lunches, and they'll be available at the school sites at the same time. Again, that personalized learning time, you can use it to work with individuals or small groups of students and then have other students be asynchronous, or you can use it for a full asynchronous, or even if you needed to, a whole group follow-up. All right, but just remember that afternoon time after lunch for PLT is a little bit shorter than the time that you have for live synchronous before lunch. I wanted to draw your attention to the specialized protocols at the bottom. When you go to the live slides that are in the PD resources page, you can click on these links and actually see these documents here. There are some specialized protocols that pertain to science labs, the use of classroom libraries for those ELD and ELA classes, instrumental music, choral music, and then the PE instruction. So you'll have access to that once you click on the live links for the slides, but they're just a little bit more detailed about what your situation is because they're slightly varied based on what we're allowed to do for health and safety. Okay. All right. So with that, I'm going to transition over to Mr. Jose Ortega to take you through the physical learning space.
Thank you, Helen. Good afternoon, everybody. So at this point, what we want to do is talk about setting up your physical learning space that will enable for a productive learning experience during our hybrid simultaneous setting. And so we hope to present you with some ideas that you can consider as you prepare your classroom for students. Next slide, please. And so as you've been setting up your classroom to welcome students back, we wanted to show you a 4-minute excerpt of a video that was shared back in January during the Distance Learning 2.0 training. And in particular, what we wanted to do is, we want this to serve as sort of a refresher for how to set up your Logitech camera. If you happen to have your camera with you, please grab it so that you can follow along. And if not, no worries. This video is available for you to watch later as you continue your prepping for hybrid simultaneous learning.
I apologize, everyone. Oops. I need to actually reconfigure something, so just give me one moment. Go ahead and breathe.
It's perfect time in case your camera is nearby to go get it and maybe follow along as we review the steps to how to set up your Logitech camera.
Okay, let's try this again.
Okay, thank you, Helen.
Introduction video is in preparation for receiving the Logitech conference camera. Though we are not presently in person with students, the use of the conference camera can provide teachers additional mobility while instructing.
I'm sorry, are you
The
guys hearing
following will
sound?
demonstrate how the camera can be used in a classroom setting with or without students being present. We would like to thank our demonstration teacher for the day, Lisa Prado from Sierra Madre Elementary School. She will demonstrate the use of the standard district-issued equipment, which consists of the Logitech BCC 950. It comes with a USB cord, power cord, and an alternate USB cord. In the event there is no outlet close to the camera setup, you can power the camera off of the Lenovo ThinkPad by using one of the secondary USB ports. The other district-provided device is the Dell Chromebook. It also has multiple USB ports from which you can power the camera and plug the USB data cable into. There is also optional equipment such as projectors, secondary monitors, and document cameras that may be provided by different school sites. Since access to additional and optional equipment may vary by site, this demonstration will focus on the setup and use of the core equipment needed. We will look at how to install the equipment and use it in a general classroom setup. Lisa has opted for the wall option. She takes the power cord and plugs it into the back of the camera and then will plug it into the wall. Next, she will take the USB data cable from the camera and plug it into the USB port of the Lenovo. Since the camera is plug and play, there is no application to install. Once the camera is set up, you need only go to your desired meeting platform and select that device as your camera. As you see, there's also a remote control for operating the camera. In the WebEx meeting, select the caret next to the Stop Video at the bottom of the screen. Select the BCC 950 as the camera. The computer may take a few seconds to switch to the selected camera. Once it does, you can use the remote to aim the camera and get the best angle for your position.
You will also need to do the same to switch the audio to the BCC 950 by clicking on the arrow next to the mute button.
Something to note is that the camera has a fairly wide viewing angle of 78 degrees. The red triangle represents the viewing angle of the camera based on Lisa's positioning. In this demonstration, the device is approximately 7 feet away from the wall and covers a small portion of the wall. If you would like to use the wall for teaching, you will need to move the camera further away from the wall.
All right, thank you.
In this demonstration,
There we go. So just as a reminder to everybody, the use of this technology, of this equipment, the Logitech camera, is optional, but we definitely invite you to try it out and see what works best for you. For example, if you find that the gooseneck component does not work for you, for whatever reason, we have also found that the microphone on the base of the Logitech is quite good. And perhaps you can use that to better capture your voice so students that are online can hear you clearly. Next slide, please. So now we're going to take a look at a few examples of how teachers at John Muir High School have set up their classrooms. And so just wanted to send a shout out and a thank you to our Muir colleagues for allowing us to showcase your setup, as well as a big thank you to Kim Knudsen, our esteemed colleague and instructional coach of Muir, for taking these pictures and sharing them with us so that we can share them with you all. This slide focuses on how to position your equipment. On the picture on the right, you could see how the teacher set up her tech station for all of her equipment. And on the left, you can see the student's vantage point. And just note how the teacher made conscientious decisions about where her tech would be so that she could best interact with both her online and in-person students. Next slide. In these pictures, we're going to take a look at seat distancing in case you have tables rather than desks in your classroom. Notice that on the left, the teacher may have to reposition the seats so that students are sitting on the shorter end of the table and not next to each other. And then on the right, you see how the tables and chairs are currently set up. You could have 2 students per table, and perhaps they can put their backpacks or other materials on the chairs that are not being used. Next slide, please. And then finally, if you do have classroom desks, or if you have a classroom full of desks instead of tables, what we urge you to consider is to stagger your seating chart by having students sit in every other desk, for example. On the left, note that the teacher might not have much room to maneuver around, and within his tech station setup, we would definitely still recommend that the teacher use the Logitech camera and or mic to help reach all of their students. Right, and with that, we're going to transition over to the learning experience. I'm going to turn it over to Nadira Nayo.
Thank you, Jose. So, good afternoon, everybody. And as it says, we're talking about the learning experience, and this learning experience is going to be different, than our kids have kind of experienced because now we have students in person and we have students in remote. And so this is what we're going to kind of talk about. Next slide, please. So before we go on, when we think about it, just some tips for connecting the two cohorts. It's going to be important that we kind of bring the cohorts together in some type of space for them to work together so that they're seen as one community. Right now, they're all one community because they're all, remote. When they come back, some coming back, some not, we still want to kind of make that connection. And so the idea is to plan for some of those SEL check-ins to connect both those groups. Something like what Karen had shared with you earlier. There's a lot of short SEL activities that can be done, not as intense, just really quick things like a quick would you rather, things like that. There are links there, the SEL check-in, there are links that you'll be able to go into that were kind of put together by Kim Knutson. It's kind of a board giving you some ideas that you can use. And then also, there's another on the transition and breaks. I think there's another one. Some of you may have seen it already, but it's kind of the recess room that Kim put together, which is really nice. They're Google Slides. Well, one is a Padlet. This one is a Google Slide that you could kind of make copies of and put your own links in there. The other thing is to plan to and maintain your physical teaching space so that both your online and your in-person students can see you. Now, of course, your in-person students will always see you no matter where you're in the room, unless you're hiding behind a desk or something, right? But however, you have to make sure that you are in a place that your remote students, your online students will be able to see you. And as you saw, some of the camera setup, I'm not sure if you could see it in one of the photos. One of the teachers had their camera, so it was kind of facing out towards the students, which makes me think that maybe this teacher is going to stand on that side of it and actually show the in-person students while they are teaching. And like we said, it all depends on your setup, where in the one setup, the teacher didn't have as much room. So maybe either using the Logitech camera or the camera on the device, the Lenovo or the Chromebook is going to use that so that at least that person is face to face with the students at a given time. Then the idea is also planning for shared spaces for in-person and remote students. Now, these are things that a lot of people I've seen in a lot of classrooms and secondary classrooms you've been using already, like Jamboards. Some people are using digital notebooks. There's one we're going to share with you next, Google Slides, but using digital desks, which I thought was really interesting. Nearpod, Quizlets, things like that. Something that's very important is using the same resources for both groups of students. So the idea is we wouldn't want to have something for in-person students that the online students do not have access to. And so this is why the use of Canvas, some of the things that you've already been doing already, any texts that they have, adopted materials, that they would both have that. And thinking about if you're requiring students to have pencil and paper, just making sure that or a notebook, that it's kind of that structure, or that your online students always have that as part of their materials for the day, even if they're not going to use them. So they don't have to get up, run, find something and do things, just kind of making sure that they're prepared for the classroom. And then something else that we found through some teachers who have been teaching in this modality for various lengths of time was something we found interesting. When we're talking about discussions, finding that it becomes almost very important that you explicitly name the online students and in-person students when you're asking questions. And what we mean by that is, like, if I was going to ask a question, I might say, okay, I'm going to ask this question and I'm going to ask my online students first. I'm going to ask somebody from the remote setting or the online setting first. Why did the chicken cross the road? I'm going to give you guys give you some time to think about that. And then the first group I'm going to call on are the students online. So I would give them some time, and then I say, okay, Karen, online, you're remote, How did you have a chance to think about that? Why did the chicken cross the road, right? Same thing if I'm going to use my in-person students. It's like, okay, so now I'm going to ask the same question to my in-person students. I'm going to direct it there. It sounds silly, but when you just kind of throw it to the atmosphere, we know what happens in a regular classroom when students are all there. Why did the chicken cross the road? There's somebody's going to answer, right? So in this case, we are directly giving students a point to really think about it and think, oh, they might call on me, so I'll think about that. So that's what that was for. Okay, next one. So this one here is about a 4-minute video, and it's called Making Shared Space for in-person and remote learners. And it's about use of digital desks. I think it was a really good way. It's within middle school. I think it will work with high school. I know it will work with high school also, because I know that there's some high schools that are using digital notebooks. So go ahead and we'll go ahead and play this video, and then we'll go ahead.
All right, there we go. Everybody's popping in. You ready to do this? Okay, so
the multiple transitions that have taken place this year have impacted all of my students. We started off the year virtual as one giant class, and then when we came back hybrid, they were split apart.
It has been a lot harder to connect with my teacher and other students. I'm not seeing most of them in person anymore.
I really needed something to connect students who are completely virtual and the kids who are here in person, and to create more normalcy throughout this entire pandemic. Kids really need their own space that is authentically theirs. I am represented in my classroom, no matter where the classroom is. And that's the reasons digital desks came into being.
There you go, guys. The link is in the chat. I'm going to present now, and then we'll go over the warm-up.
I wanted something simple, and so I created a Google Slides deck where each student has their own individual desk and the teacher has a board. The students go in to the desk, they personalize them. You make a copy of it every day before they start writing on it.
All right, so the warm-up for today, I want you to go to your desk, pick a favorite childhood memory, and use at least one example of figurative language in your warm-up.
It's really helped us connect because it's like we're all in the same classroom, even though we're not. We can see everybody working live right there. You just click on someone's desk and you can see them typing.
Google Slides has this great feature where you can look at all your slides at once. And so I zoom out to this aerial view of my classroom, and all the kids are at their own desk doing whatever it is they're doing, but I can see all of them working at once.
Oh, wow. First travel soccer team, Lily. Ooh, Xavier, that is an awesome simile that you threw in there. Yeah, if you want to see some awesome writing, check out Xavier's desk.
And as I see them work, I can see when problems arise, the students have this color-coded system. Green means I'm good. Red means I need 911 help. Pop into my slide right now. So it's kind of like a classroom where you see a kid raise their hand.
Now, go to someone else's desk to leave them feedback. Using the comment tool, you're going to highlight something.
After the warm-up, we went to other students' desks and we left a glow and a grow.
Love the feedback you're giving each other. You guys are doing awesome. Now, here's what I want you to do. We're going to get with partners. If you go up and you look at the board, Nathan and Delilah are going to be partners at Nathan's desk.
The biggest surprise from utilizing digital desks is students are becoming more confident in their writing. At first, they were a little bit scared because they knew everyone else can see what I'm doing. But because of that, it makes them put their best selves forward.
Getting some good lines, some good hyperboles.
Because kids are expressing themselves, they have a space that's theirs. My students are thriving and engaging with each other. And so now you'll see kids going to other kids' desks and just saying, hey, great job on this, or leaving another kid a note.
I want you to read the poem. The one you like the best, put the name of the person who you think should win in the chat, and then you can peace out, Cub Scouts. And I love you guys.
It's kept my students together. They'll have a place that's theirs no matter where we are.
Bye, guys. Have a great weekend.
So this was just an idea that I had found that I thought, wow, what a great way to kind of connect those two. Now, the same thing, I've seen teachers do similar things through Jamboards. And so it's just really like, what is that space that you're planning on doing that in? There are links to the digital desk slides in there, so it has it, and she has all the instructions on how to do it. And I thought of a lot of different ways of it being used in various classrooms. So I think it's a really good, it's another tool for you, right? Not something you have to do, but I thought it was a pretty good tool, even if it's not used during the entire class, maybe part of the class or something like that. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So the next thing, and kind of next to the last thing I'd like to talk to you about are just tips from educators across California who have been, kind of them have been doing this with us. I mean, before us. So this came from the CTA California Educator. So those of you who have read it, you may have seen these already. And the first thing that I really liked that the teacher said was accept that things will go longer and it's okay to let some things go. I know sometimes we feel like we have to get through everything that we've planned, um, but we just might not. But we can get to those important things that students, that they need to at that point, and don't beat yourself up over it. Another thing, a lot of you have been doing this already throughout this entire year, making videos of yourself teaching so students can watch them or watch them repeatedly. So the idea is maybe there's a concept that you're like, if I just took and did a 4-minute video on this. Honestly, videos probably shouldn't be more. I think it's about 4 to under 5 minutes is about max, but research has it saying that where the attention will stay, just of a concept that you want kids to get, like you're going to teach it. But however, maybe what happens is that the students didn't understand it. It might be a way when you go and they're doing some asynchronous time, they can go back and they can review what your directions were and what you're saying about this particular concept or content. The other thing is we know that things are not going to go as planned all the time. And so you might have to switch tactics necessarily. I don't actually know what those tactics are right now, but there might be some switching and you might, teachers are phenomenal in that we come in and we say, that didn't work. We're going to pause this and we're going to do this for right now, right? It's okay, right? It's okay to do that. It might be okay to say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give my in-person students this. I'm going to work with my online students right now, just for a moment, for the next 5 to 10 minutes or whatever. And that might be a way of you gathering your thoughts, right, of what you need to do. So either way, just think, don't worry about that if things are not going as planned. One of the big things was also just to make slides that can be viewed by both student groups. The idea is that at least if there are some type of slides in front of students. They might have directions, they might have something to go from. They might not have to ask you as many questions. And so since our students will be bringing their Chromebooks books with them, then they can also look at those, the students who are in person also. And one of the biggest things is to reach out to other teachers for support to collaborate. I have seen that this pandemic that we've been in, I've seen so much more collaboration going on because we've been forced to, right? Because the teaching, as they say, can be kind of a lonely position where you go into your room, you do your thing. I might have collaboration time, I might not. But I think what it has happened is that it's been a forced collaboration that's been good. I've talked to some teams that say we've never collaborated as well, and we're really glad. And I hope that even post this, that we can keep that going with our new technologies. All right, next slide. So as you head into next week, which will be the 20th, will be the start for secondary students returning, we still have some instructional supports for you. First of all, on the 19th, next Monday, we will have the hybrid simultaneous learning 2, and it will focus mainly on instruction. So we will probably go deeper into a lot of the things that you saw here, and we will be in, I want to say, subject area alike breakouts, right? So we can really hone in and what do you need as a subject area. And then from the rest of that week, there'll be a hotline during the day. So if you're experiencing like, hey, some tech issues or something's going on, you can dial this extension. It'll get you to the hotline for one of the team members that are here right now to kind of address or to deploy somebody who's at your site. You're like, hey, can you get to so-and-so's room? Because I think they need more assistance that I can offer them over the phone. And that's that in the moment you're in front of kids and you might need some some tech assistance or other assistance right now. At the same time, we'll have office hours for you after student dismissal. So once students dismiss, there'll be an office hours, and all of this will be put in there, the gopusd.com SecOH, secondary office hours, for you to go in and just kind of ask those questions. Hey, this is what happened today. I'm wondering, what do you think about this? You know, things like that. The second thing right there, as you see, the entire video, I think the total is about 6 minutes. I think, Jose, we showed you part of it as far as the setup was concerned. Once again, it is not mandatory that you use that, but you might want to see, is it beneficial to you? Some teachers felt like their cameras on their devices were better, and from where they were going to stand or sit or whatever, they were fine not using it. But also looking to see, hey, would the audio, would the using the audio be better? I saw something in the Q&A where someone said, put it on music mode, I think, and it enhances it. So there's different things that you might consider. And the last instructional support that we have would be the links to all the PD workshops that we've had this year. This video will be linked there. The slides are also linked there right now, and we will go from there. Okay, next slide. So this has been it's been a year. That's all I can say. It's just been a year for everybody. But there is one thing that I've noticed with teachers, and I found this quote. The fact that you are worrying about being a good teacher means that you already are. The fact that you're worried about your students not getting what you believe that they should be getting in this time, you're already a good teacher. The fact that you're just thinking about, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this for my students? You are a good teacher. And I don't want you beating yourself up over, I didn't do this, I couldn't do that, this didn't work out right. It worked for what it was. You take a step back, you think about it, you collaborate with others and ask questions, and you move forward, right? No one's, coming in saying, you didn't do this, but I know you're going to do that to yourself, which is why I'm telling you not to, right? No one's going to do that to you, but I'm telling you not to. Okay, next slide. Oh, go ahead, Helen.
Oh, thanks, Nadira. So much appreciation for both Jose and Nadira sharing with us what the learning space can look like and some ideas for connecting the cohorts. I did want to front load that next week when we meet together to really talk about the instructional piece, we'll actually be going further into some of the constructs that were shared, like the digital desks and the SEL starters. So we are also planning to have part of next week's meeting be subject area breakouts. So you'll be able to work with people who are in your subject area, but you'll actually be able to choose your room. So if there's also somebody that you're collaborating with, as Nadira stated, like teachers that you've been connecting with, you can also choose to go into that breakout as well. So, so just wanted to front load you guys on what's coming for next week. And that we do absolutely know that it's really not enough time for us to cover everything with depth. There's a significant amount of planning that you guys do all the time in this era. And what we hope to do was just kind of give a little bit of an introduction to some ideas that we have narrowed down, because we also know there's a wealth of ideas and we don't want to over inundate with so many. It really just takes one good, stable concept and then maybe build and build. It's not a lot of weeks left. And so I don't, expect anyone here to make this some creative, incredible endeavor. Definitely put into it what you have the energy to put into, and make sure that it's manageable for what you have the bandwidth to do and what your students have the bandwidth to do. So we'll spend a lot more time next week talking about that instructional piece, but just wanted to make sure that you guys had a little bit of the front load on what's possible. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and see if we have some time to answer some questions. I think we have about 5 minutes. So I know that some answers were already being put into the Q&A live, so you can scroll through that, but also know that we've captured all of them, as well as the ones that probably won't get answered live today, and we will put them into that FAQ document and make sure it's posted in the PD resources page that Nadira just showed you. All right, so let me go and see what's up. Okay. Oh, does the hybrid schedule begin tomorrow, meaning this week? No, it does not. So we continue with the distance learning schedule through the end of this week. Next Monday is live synchronous remote, just like usual. So really the change initiates on April 20th when the in-person learning resumes. The other question that's kind of a follow-up is there a period time breakdown for both the morning before lunch of synchronous time and for the PLT time in the afternoon? Yes. So every school submitted a period by period breakdown. So check in with your administrator on what yours looks like, because there's a breakdown for before lunch and a breakdown for after lunch. Okay, so you have designated times. That will help you for, I see some people are going to adjust their WebEx meetings. You probably have some preset meetings. You can adjust the times to match the new schedule beginning on April 20th. Another logistical question was, is the sequence of the A and B dates going to change? No. So that again is something that you'll double check in with your school administration, but we are still doing a staggered A and B day in whichever periods you guys teach on Tuesday, Thursday, and then Wednesday, Friday. Okay, so that you'll go through all of your periods in a 2 consecutive day time period. Okay, where can we find the live link for slides? I'm not sure if you mean the slides for the digital desk or if you mean this slide deck, but if it's for the digital desks, the hyperlink is included in this slide deck on the same slide that the video was on. So you'll find that in the PD resources document. And if one of the team could put that link to the PD resources document in the Q&A, then everybody can pull it right now. All right. Let's see. Yes, this is an interesting one. If I'm wondering if 30 minutes is sufficient time for students to grab lunches, get home and eat before logging in. It's true. We've actually gone back and forth a few times, and I know some of the leaders are on the call here too. We do think it's tricky. It's tricky with the commute time. So we do anticipate, we built in an extra, passing and a little bit of an elongated first period after lunch. But we do know that you will probably have to anticipate a little bit of lagging with some students. And we also don't know if all students live close enough to be, doing all of that in a 30-minute time period. But this is what we kind of have to set as a schedule. And I just really apologize in advance because I know it's going to be an imposition on your time as well. But I think in the first few days, you'll figure out how many of those students actually need to make that commute and what you could be expecting for. But the other thing I want to bring up is that PLT time doesn't have to be every student logging in. It's your decision, and you can communicate with your students who you need to see that day. If you do need to see the whole class and you're accounting for people's travel time, then that's something that I think you'll figure out in the next few days. And it's fair to ask your students too. Okay. If no students are coming to your PLT time, do you need to remain in your classroom? So yes, we are on site through the PLT time. It's during the office hours time. That's around 2:10 to, depending on whether you're middle or high, that it's the office hours prep time that you have the ability to choose to be in your classroom or to be remote. Okay. But during PLT time, you are expected to be on campus. How will attendance work if we potentially expect to see students 2 times a day? You only have to take attendance once. So the recommendation is to take attendance in the morning section before lunch. Okay. All right. Oh, do we have a percentage of students who answered the survey? You do need to check in with your school site. They do have the most recent survey information. It closed on April 7th. So all secondary schools now have their latest data. So again, check in with your school site. They have been working through the spring break to compile how many. I will be honest that there are fewer secondary students coming back in person than our elementary sites. So so don't be shocked if you have really low in-person classes. But hopefully that also alleviates a little bit of the commute that you have to worry about. Okay, I am seeing that it is 12:45 and there are a few more questions, but what I will do now is actually end it so that you can go about the rest of your day. I know you have lunch and things like that going on, but we will make sure to get the rest of the questions answered and put that FAQ doc up as soon as we can. It sometimes takes us a couple days to make sure that we have all responses accurate, but I'm looking at the questions and I think that we can get that done for you within the next 2 days. So again, check that PD resources page for the recording, for the slide deck that we used today, and then for that FAQ doc that we'll get up shortly. All right. Again, secondary teachers, thank you so much for joining us. Your first day back from spring break, and especially for those of you who are taking an asynchronous day, thanks for spending the time with us. But we hope to see you guys next week and, be a part of the preparation with you. Thank you all so much for jumping in.